Hey guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In Mark chapter 4, we read about Jesus calming the storm. If you remember in that story, Jesus with his disciples go out on the boat, and it says that the waves were breaking into the boat so that the boat was already filling up. So this is a very dire situation. And it goes on to say that Jesus himself was in the stern sleeping on the cushion. And so Jesus is asleep while the waves are crashing against the boat. The boat is filling up with water. He's just asleep there on the cushion. And they come up to him and say, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And it says that he woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Silence, be still. Just like rebuking a little child, silence, be still. And it says the wind died down and became perfectly calm. And then it says, and Jesus said to them, why are you so cowardly? Do you still have no faith? Now, what's shocking about this story, besides the fact that Jesus calms a storm just by speaking to it, but what's so shocking about this story is not so much that the disciples were lacking in faith here, and that Jesus called them cowardly. I mean, humanly speaking, we can kind of understand they're in the middle of this huge lake. The wind is stirring up these waves and it's breaking against the boat, and the boat's filling up with water. And, from their perspective, it looked like they were about to drown. And perhaps we can understand why they would have been scared, why they would have been shocked that Jesus was asleep. That's not what's really so shocking about this story. What's shocking about this story, and what's we could also say is very encouraging about this story, is the fact that Jesus calmed the storm even though they were being cowardly and even though they were having no faith. Even in the midst of a situation where they were showing no faith whatsoever, they were being cowardly and scared, Jesus still met their need. And we see this happening time and time again in Jesus's ministry. We could think about when Peter was walking on the water and he saw the waves. He got distracted. He stopped fixing his eyes on Jesus, and he started looking at the waves, and he began to sink. And he cries out, and Jesus reaches down and pulls him up and rebukes him for his little faith. But even though he rebukes him for his little faith, he still pulls him out of the water. And this is very encouraging, because I think sometimes when we encounter certain situations or God is calling us to do some type of work that might be a bit intimidating, maybe we have to deal with difficult people or difficult scenarios. Oftentimes what we might do is focus on our faith. We might think, I don't have enough faith to go up against this situation. I don't have enough faith to do this work that God is calling me to do. And we concentrate a lot on our faith, and we're afraid that everything's going to break up and fall apart because we don't have enough faith. And it is true, we should try to build on our faith. We should try to grow in faith. Of course, it's not good to have small faith or little faith. But however, what we tend to do is over-focus on our faith or our lack of faith. And all that does is cause us to have even littler faith, smaller faith than we did before, and we end up having no hope in the situation whatsoever. But what if instead of focusing on our faith or lack of faith, we began to focus on God's faithfulness? God's faithfulness, because that's what we find shining in this story. Where the disciples' faith was lacking, Jesus's faithfulness was not lacking. He was still faithful, even though they were acting cowardly, and even though they were acting as though they had no faith. And if we could focus on that when we encounter difficult situations, I think it would encourage us a lot more to say, it's not about the size of my faith or where I'm at in my faith or how strong my faith is. It's about the faithfulness of God. It's how faithful is God, not how faith-filled am I. And when we look at it that way, what it actually does is it does cause our faith to grow, and it does cause us to be filled with faith, because we're no longer focused on ourselves. We're focused on God, the one who is faithful. And when we think of his faithfulness, it fills us with faith. And it causes our faith to grow, not because we're focused on our faith and trying to muster up a lot of faith, but because we're just getting lost in the faithfulness of God. And so whenever we encounter storms at sea, or we find ourselves in difficult situations like this, like we found the disciples, let's focus on God. Not on ourselves, but focus on Him. A God who is faithful, a God who meets us in our needs, a God who reaches down and pulls us out of the waters even when we don't have any faith or we're lacking in faith, a God who is faithful to meet our needs and to show us His loving kindness and His mercy and His compassion, and so much so that they never run out. He's always there for us. So hopefully our story today will encourage us to focus on the Lord in hard times, focus on His faithfulness, and trust that He will meet our needs and He will meet us where we're at, and He will pull us through. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.